In the last episode, Wave Rover made landfall on the island of Flores, and I entered the harbor of Lajes shortly after midnight. And for the first week, things were great. There was little or no wind, and life in the harbor was marvelous. But in the second week, we had strong easterly winds, and they were sustained over a period of 5 or 6 days, and they in turn created a strong swell from the east. And that swell enters the harbor and makes life challenging in the harbor. The swell enters the harbor and bounces off the walls, and the boats tend to surge and lean and work against the ropes, and it can be damaging to some boats. But I also want to say that those conditions are very rare, and that a stop at Lajes is well worth it, especially after a transatlantic voyage from North America. Here you can see Wave Rover working against her lines. Now I have her tied in such a way to an adjacent dock to keep her about 3 feet off of her own dock. I also have extra fenders out on the port side just in case any of those lines snap, as you will see later on. This is the entrance to the inner harbor, and the swell is building up. And if you notice, it's making its way to the right of the screen. And as it does that, it enters the inner harbor and it bounces off the walls. This is the result of all that swell. So this is one of my mooring lines, and the outer protection of the line has totally snapped, and what I'm left with is the inner core. Now the inner core will hold for a certain amount of time, and it'll give you enough time to start to replace those lines. But you know, there's and of course I had chafe protection, but it's just that constant surging snapped the outer layer of the lines. In this case, I'm also showing my attachment points for the series drogue, which are a 1/4 inch stainless steel by 1.5 inches in width. And the rope snapped that was tied to it, but also the steel itself was bent. No damage, no real damage to the boat occurred. The bolts held the steel in place, but the amount of force it takes to bend a piece of stainless steel like that is really quite a thing. This is another mooring line that just pulled itself apart, you know. But the important thing is make sure you've doubled up your lines, as you can see in this picture, so you can have the opportunity to change those out as they snap. In the second half of this video, I had the real privilege of being invited to sail on one of the island's traditional whaling craft. Now these boats, they're 40 feet long and about 7.5 feet wide. They're gaff rigged and fully traditional. These were the boats that the islanders used when they went out whaling. And they're a magnificent ride, and as I said, I had the privilege to be on one as we circumnavigated the entire island of Flores. Enjoy the scenery. I'm sailing in a replica of an original sailing boat that the folks in Flores, in fact the Azore Islands, would sail in normally. Just take a look at some of this scenery. All the islands of the Azores maintain traditional sailing boats just like this, and every year they get together and they have a regatta to see who is the best. In the next episode, I'll be touring the island of Flores and giving you a sense of what the westernmost point of Europe is like.